promoting the use of renewable energy in view of its critical contribution to the economy. This was the thrust of the speeches at the opening ceremony held in Abuja. Chinedu Obike has the details.
In this forum organized by the National Solar Energy Forum, the focus is on ways of promoting the huge possibilities of renewable energy and actually getting Nigerians to take advantage of it. Studies by the Energy Commission indicate that electricity generated by solar has the capability of contributing 17% of the total energy requirement of the economy and can also be useful in pumping water, street lighting, vaccine refrigeration, and in many more areas.
Solar energy is actually the basics, and we have a lot of it in this country that has to be transformed. If transformed properly, can help in production of electricity.
Speakers at the forum harped on the need to collectively deal with the challenges militating against the actualization of the potentials of renewable energy.
There should be advocacy, there should be enough awareness to therefore, and it's part of what we are doing on this annual program.
The opening ceremony was attended by stakeholders in science and technology, including students from secondary schools. In Abuja, Chinedu Obike, NTA News.
Now to the National Assembly. Determined to mitigate the impact of climate change in Nigeria, the Senate has passed for second reading a bill seeking the establishment of the National Agency for the Great Green Wall 2015. It is aimed at fast-tracking the implementation of the provisions of the Convention of the Great Green Wall Program in the country towards the management of drought, desertification, and afforestation control measures. Senate leader Victor Ndoma Egba, who led the debate on general principles of the bill, said about 43% of Nigeria's total land area is under threat of desertification, with resultant consequences on food security, sustainable livelihood, and social security of the affected communities of 40 million people.
Will help safeguard the environment, ensure food security, reduce unemployment and poverty, protect our citizens in the affected parts from the vagaries of weather, reduce strife and criminality, ensure sustainable livelihood, and avert a major catastrophe in the near future.
Desertification is a serious enough problem and danger, and we can see it approaching. My humble suggestion would be that we take proactive steps now to make sure that this thing doesn't get beyond where it is at the moment, and that when we approve this, the implementation will be very sincere and very fruitful at the end of the day.
The Senate also adopted the conference committee report on the Nigerian Electricity Management Services Agency Establishment Bill 2015. Still in the National Assembly, the Senate Committee on Aviation wants the Federal Ministry of Aviation to put in place all necessary logistics, including closing all security gaps at the airports, to ensure that Nigeria scales through the expected audits by the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. It was at a meeting with the Minister of Aviation, Osita Chidoka. National Assembly correspondent Kenneth Nanim reports.
The meeting was necessary to ascertain the level of commitment of the ministry in meeting with the demands of the aviation sector. This focuses on the international obligation of the Nigerian airlines to provide safety and security services to customers, as well as harmonize the financial commitments of the ministry to provision and maintenance of infrastructure at all Nigerian airports. The members of the Senate Committee on Aviation, through its chairman, Chief Hope Uzodinma, requested the minister to forward all necessary documents to that effect to the committee for further action.
Only a few months ago, we acquired the Cat 1 status by FAA, and we also have observed of late some security gaps at our airports. So, and it is worrisome, because if those gaps are not closed and this audit is carried out by June, we may be disqualified from our Cat 1 status. And that is something that will be a very big embarrassment, not only to the government of this country, to Nigeria as a nation.
While the minister explains that his ministry has performed creditably in providing services with internally generated revenue, he assures that necessary logistics are underway for optimum performance.
We are in the process. We are making very strenuous effort to make sure that all the things that are needed for the audit is in place. We have challenges that we are in a transition, but we are trying to make sure that we insulate the airports from the transitional uncertainty and make sure that we provide all the facilities that are required for us to be successful in the audit, because the audit has implications for Nigerian aviation.
The International Civil Aviation Organization is saddled with the responsibilities of adopting the code of conduct for safety and security of airline operators, their passengers, as well as airports, amongst other functions. From the National Assembly, Kenneth Nanim, NTA News.
Away from the National Assembly comes a report that the Information Minister, Senator Patricia Akwashike, has assured the National Broadcasting Commission of the federal government's desire to beat the June 17th deadline for the digital switchover of television broadcasting around the world. Correspondent Anthony Forson reports that the minister was responding to fears raised by the Director General of the Commission in Abuja. The reports.
The minister was visiting the commission as part of her familiarization visits to parastatals under her ministry. There, the Director General of the Commission, Emeka Mba, explained to her the implications of not meeting the deadline and what is holding back the process. In her response, Senator Akwashike said,
I am really sure that the President knows that it is very essential to meet the deadline of June, and he will do whatever he can to help you achieve that deadline.
In an interview with the NBC Director General, he put the issues in this perspective.
The things we've done, working with all our principal stakeholders, set-top box people are in place, the signal distribution people are in place. About 78% of our population still have analog. And I cannot recommend the switch off of analog when the 78% of our population do not have access to digital television. I think that will be a huge disservice and potentially, a national security risk. Having people who are already having challenge of rumors and people not having adequate information, and they want to switch off a very primary organ of information. That would be a huge risk.
The Director General of Nigerian Television Authority, Shola Omole, who is equally working round the clock, is optimistic about the digitization deadline.
We've done a lot. NTA, we have about 40 cities already digitized. We're broadcasting digital on our multi-channels. If appropriate funding is provided, we can do the rest in a dash.
In Abuja, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
Experts in the broadcasting industry in Nigeria say they are poised to ensure the nation meets the deadline of digital switchover DSO. This was the resolution at the two-day First International Summit on Digital Broadcasting in Nigeria. Adebola Brooksley Sunday reports that the event coincides with the 63rd General Assembly of the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria.
Despite the fact that June 17, 2015 is just a few weeks ahead, experts here believe that there is a need for degree of deliberate, decisive and all-encompassing attitude to achieve the goal, especially in content management for digital broadcasting.
In this new digital era, this digital ecosystem we're talking about, content is key. If you don't have content, I switch you off. I go on to somebody who has exciting content. That's what it's about.
And when you look at the size of our population, the number of radio and TV stations, we don't have an option but to key into the digital spectrum.
Broadcasters will have to up their game to make sure that they can catch up in the digital process as quickly as possible. Most of the existing state-owned and privately owned stations have acquired the infrastructure and equipment to really get this going on.
Our NTA Enterprise, which is the second
national signal distributor is ready. And the good thing that over the last 30 years, federal government has invested billions in NTA. Today, that infrastructure is what we're using as part of digitalization.
But there is one major thing in the mind of the regulator, which is serving a social purpose.
It is how we reflect on the importance of the viewer, of the listener, in using digital to connect, to create new content for them.
For the leadership of Radio, Television and Theatre Art Workers Union, staff welfare, which will serve as a motivational factor, should also be put into consideration in the transition.
We have to discuss about the personnel, the people that are going to operate the equipment, and what is going to be their lot.
Access to an expanding digital market, increased advertising revenue are some of the benefits the digital switchover has to offer. In Abuja, Adebola Brookslyn Sunday, NTA News.
Now, education. The idea that vice-chancellors and rectors of institutions of higher learning should come from their immediate locality has been described as erroneous and alien to the system. Education Minister Ibrahim Shekarau, who inaugurated the Governing Council of 12 new federal universities and 4 polytechnics, say merit should be the watchword in the appointments of heads of institutions. Franca Uzoma Olua has the report.
The establishment of the 12 new federal universities and 4 polytechnics in states that did not have was the fallout of a Federal Executive Council decision of 2010. Members of the governing councils are seen as distinguished Nigerians who had made positive impact on various fields of human endeavor.
There is a very clear distinction about.
So if you want to have curriculum, then you must have effective school management.
ANCOP's national president, Hajiya Dr. Fatima Abdurrahman, noted the peculiarities of the new education curriculum.
With the introduction of these 2 subjects, there are artisans in the community that the school can use to teach students practical aspects. The essence is to make the students at the end of the senior secondary school education to be able to fend for themselves so that they will be fit in the society.
Landmark contributions to educational growth by the host, the FCT, were highlighted.
If you look at the schools in FCT, you see the quality of infrastructure, quality of teachers, quality of equipment, and we are doing more.
The 5-day event featured march past by delegates, lectures and awards to education stakeholders, including the FCT Minister Bala Mohammed. Trophies were given to Lagos State, who won essay competition through Chukwemeka Favor, and Anambra State, who came first in quiz competition through Ume Anthony Nnemeka.
The conference has exposed us the principles to the current rudiments of school administration.
The over 8,000 principals of secondary schools in Nigeria attended this year's ANCOPS Congress with the theme, Good School-Community Relationship, a tool for effective implementation of the new curriculum. Nancy Godiamuni, NTA News.
Regional integration, peace and security, as well as health and electricity were the main focus of the European Union strategy for the year 2014 and 2020. This was brought to the fore at a media briefing put together.
Human rights, environment, as well as climate change, held of European Union delegation